will be episode 5 of the Lakeshore Fab Lab Tech Talk. And my name is Chris Kaminsky, and typically I'd be running the Lakeshore Fab Lab if we were there, but now times have changed, so we're trying to do some more online stuff to kind of connect and build relationships kind of in this digital space. So if you're curious about the future Tech Talks, go to our website. You can kind of see what's on the docket, what's on the schedule. We update it as we go. And for previous recordings, you can actually go and check them out here under the Tech Talk tab and watch previous ones on YouTube. And tonight we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, game dev, more as a gamer, less as a developer. Although I'm dabbling a little bit to play around because it's something that's always, I grew up playing games. So being able to have Jim.Landes of Muskegon Community College and Garrett Hoofman of a couple different things. I met him through the GameDevGR group, the meetup, but he actually works for a company called 3rd Coast right now doing software dev. I'll let them speak a little bit more about that. So thank you guys for joining me, and take it away, Jim. Give a little bit of background about yourself, what you do at MCC, and what got you into this career path.
What got me into the career path? Well, before there was the wheel, I was a lot like you. I was a lot like the kids that are out there. I love games. I played role-playing games and war games and miniatures and fought miniature battles. And primarily I started as a war gamer. And then one day I got introduced to, I saw this little ad in something called War Gamers Digest. It was a 1/8 of a page black and white ad for this new kind of game. It was a fantasy game called Dungeons and Dragons. I had no idea what it was. So I sent off my $15 and waited 6 weeks for it to come back. And then once I got it, I looked at this 4-sided die for about a month until I figured out how it really worked. And so I started, and I started getting my friends involved in role-playing and sort of conquering that. And I got good at it. And I found myself at conventions on the West Coast, PacificCon and Gen Con West. And I was one of the game masters who I'd say I'm coming to run a game there, and I'd have hundreds of people wanting to play in the games. And that evolved into, well, there's something to this, but you couldn't find a way to make a living being a game master. So I was working at this little gaming store called Name of the Game at the time, and I was looking down this aisle, and on one side were role-playing games, the other side were computer games, and I had this brilliant idea, hey, let's take the stuff they're doing for in television and bring it into a role-playing world and see what we could do. And that's how I started my first company in 1980. And it lasted for about 1.5 years until we went out of business, and I started another company after that. We worked at it for 10 years. To the early 90s, and then went back to school, and I picked up a couple degrees. Then was going to go into industrial organizational psychology, so I got out of the business for quite a long time there, and then wound up in high tech, did B2B software, did that for about 10 years, and then I decided I want to get back to the game industry. And what I did is I created this modification to an existing game called Mountain Blade Warband, and the modification was called Prophecy of Pendor. Some people may know about it. It's actually really popular. It has about 1.5 million downloads. And it's amazing. And I gathered this group of people together around the world, knowing them just by their handles, and we created this online virtual development team. I was doing the heavy lifting, and then someone would come in and have passion around something, a particular model or a feature. We talk about how it would work, and I would leave it to them to implement. And over a period of about 6 years, this grew and grew and grew until we had a development team of about 300 all throughout the world. And we got to know a lot of really amazing people. But I was using this to get back into the game industries, to show that, hey, you know what, even an old guy in his late 40s, early 50s still has something to provide. So, I was trying to get a game development position, maybe a producer position, creative lead somewhere. And what came across my desk one day was this job at Muskegon Community College as an instructor for their game design program, basically running the program. And I thought, yeah, I don't know, what's this? And so I talked to some folks and found out that it was perfect. It was perfect for what I wanted to do, because it would take about 2 or 3 years to get this thing up and running the way I want it to be run. And then I could create something on the side, and I did that. And I used the folks that are coming through the program, giving them the opportunity to actually work on a real life product. And we've been doing it for about 8.5 years now. A game called Starium XUV. And
I have to say, just one thing as you're talking about that, in my head I'm like, gee, this sounds very familiar. You hear about a random job at Muskegon Community College, you're like, what is this thing? All right, I'll try it. And then you're talking about the timeline of developing the program over 2 to 3 years, and I'm just like, huh, that sounds very familiar.
Is that what you did?
That's what we're doing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so we got this. We have this growing and ongoing concern, and we use some pretty advanced concepts and ideas. Where I took these kids that originally they come into the program thinking making games is the same as playing them. I'll tell you right now, it's not. Yeah, Garrett's nodding. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole world of difference. I have game developers who have quit game development and gone back into working at JPL because rocket science is easier. And there are times it is, absolutely. This is tough stuff. Yeah, it is challenging at best.
I remember after I saw that movie Grandma's Boy, when they highlighted like game testers as a job, when I was like in college, early college, I think when that movie came out, maybe high school even, I was like, oh my God, that sounds like an amazing job. But in reality, as you grow up and hear about it, you're like, do you really want to just play the same level or the same game for 40, 50, 60 hours a week?
No.
Yeah.
So, we started this concept, and it was a web-based game, and the goal was to create a new kind of experience that could be played on any kind of device. It could be played on your Xbox, your PS4, your Linux box, your Apple computer, your handheld phones. My wife challenged me about 2-3 months ago. She said, hey, we're sitting there watching Netflix on our Fire Stick. She said, hey, there's a browser here. Do you think you can get it to run? I said, well, I don't know. And so we went out, and by God, I actually was able to create heraldry and do almost everything I would expect to do on a Fire Stick. It's like, wow, who knew, right? But the goal is to make something that was completely agnostic and make it look like it was an actual game engine with no download. And it was pretty amazing. And I have to give a lot of kudos to our team. They have done amazing, amazing work.
I have another challenge for you.
Okay.
Now, whenever I go to Best Buy, I always see like these smart appliances. I want to see your game run on a smart fridge.
I'll accept that challenge.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but okay. Okay.
I mean, I saw one time there was like an Angry Birds app for it. So come on now.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, my partner in crime, Dr. Tim Trainer, is on. He's off to the side there.
Cool.
He is Chief Operations Officer and Project Manager for this endeavor. And we take young men and women who have come through our program and give them the opportunity to sit in on some of the development. And if they want to continue with it, they can. And if they do, then they earn credit toward when we release it, they get royalties from that. So it works out pretty well. That's how I got here. And game development, we have a pretty strong relationship with Ferrison's Digital Animation Game Design School. And we take people that come through that. We aim them in that direction, though many of them go into other colleges for programming or engineering, as the case may be. Sometimes even creative writing, journalism, as the case may be. It's pretty exciting. As a game developer, it's a whole set of skills that we need, and no one has them all. It's sort of have 3 big buckets of skills. One of them is programming. basically actual technical development. Then you have the designers themselves, the idea people, the creative writers and designers, and then off to the third triangle, or the third piece of this triangle is the artists. And they're all different. There's a designer, not a designer, not a designer, same thing with artists, all types of different skills. There is the traditional artist, who is, I call a concept artist. And quite frankly, from my perspective, I'm not an artist. These guys are magicians, man. They do things I don't understand, okay? You know, you throw words at them and they look at you and they take a pencil and a paper and they go, and they go, this. And you're like, how did you do that? And you work back and forth, and there's this whole, you know, there's the inkers, the shaders, the graphic artists that bring it into a digital form. Then you have the 3D artists, and you have the animators and the riggers, and there's just all different skill sets. And really, it takes a long time to master all of that. Not just the art piece, not counting the development side, which is the coders. And yeah, those guys are magicians too. I've seen. I'm primarily a game designer, a little bit of an artist, some coding. I've seen real coders, and I'm not a coder. They're amazing. They do things that are like, I can't even read their code. It's like, how do you do that? So it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, in my experience, like I've met a lot of people who do like the 3D or 2D artist stuff for games and other applications, and you know, it's not a skill set I have. Like, you wanted me to design like a motor with some gears and some pulleys, sure, I got it. But when you start to get into the fun, like kind of animation kind of stuff, that's where my skill drops, you know. And it's interesting because I've seen people who go for a game development program, maybe they end up working as maybe industrial designers at like companies, because they can digitally sculpt something and save time and money on, you know, how they used to do it old school, like clay and stuff.
Yeah, a few years ago, I had a humbling experience with an artist that was in our program, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Adams, who actually did a texture pack for Minecraft that had about 25 million downloads. It was just amazing.
Jeez.
But he was doing these in Starium. We have 280 different terrains, and he created 5 different textures that could be mixed and matched with each one of these terrains, which is just brilliant, right? And he's in the process of working on one. He says, hey, Jim, look at this. And I'm watching him make this texture. And he said, isn't this brush better? And he pulls up this other brush in Photoshop, and he's working on it. And he goes, what do you think? Isn't that better? And, you know, I had no idea what he just did. You know, it didn't look any different to me. And I realized, man, this guy's skill is, you know, beyond me. I mean, I don't even know what he did. And you have to accept that in this. You have to deal with a whole bunch of people that have skills that you do not have, and you have to value those skills and promote them. And you have to come together. And the biggest thing in our program is we teach you have to check your ego at the door. The goal is to make the best product possible. And if you have an idea, that's not who you are. That's just a moment in time. It's just a concept. And if it gets shot down or modified or changed, that's awesome. You can't pull back. You can't go, oh, geez, they don't like me, or I don't like this, or I'm not good enough. You can't even think that way. It's all about, you know what? Awesome. Go with the northbound train and get stuff to work. In fact, over the years, I've gotten to the point of every idea I've had, I throw out to the team, expecting them to basically slice it and dice it, and every single time it comes out better. And that's a great creative synergy we have going in our team. I'm really happy with that.
Awesome. It's interesting hearing you talk about, you know, kind of game developers, even on a personal hobbyist level. If you have an idea for a game, you start like doing stuff, because it's, people don't normally traditionally think of game development when you think of entrepreneurship, right? But essentially, you're selling yourself, and you're entrepreneurially creating a business to develop your game. But people think of that, you're like, oh, you're just making a game, right? But it's really a mini business.
Yeah, a mini business. Okay.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
This is
yeah,
big business. First off, you have to accept that. It is a business. Traditionally, in order for any product to be created, it takes a team of at least 3 up to maybe 20 or 30 years of work, of hard, dedicated, full-time work to create a product. And you think about that, I don't think anybody in this call could go, okay, time out, I'm going to go do something for 3 years without getting paid. That doesn't happen. So we generally have angel investors and people who invest in our idea and our vision. And that makes it a business. And they're looking for a return on that investment. And our job is to have provided a clear vision and proof that we can execute on that to actually get it to what we're trying to do. Now, our model is a little different. Our model is we are not funded. We're actually working literally just blood, sweat, and tears off to the side to create a product. We've done amazing, it's crazy the things we've been able to do on our spare time over the last 6-8 years.
sure.
And when we do go to market, it's the people who put the time and energy and effort into it are the ones who get the rewards from it, not the money guy.
Did you want to show off anything from Starium, the website, and some screenshots or anything on there? And then
Sure.
I'll let you do that, and then we can hear from Garrett.
Yeah. So this is a basic website, stariumxcv.com. So this shows you our first landing page. This is a pre-alpha, so we're kind of still in the process of working this. Looks pretty basic. I'm going to show you and demonstrate the heraldry designer. This is live, by the way. So when you get into the game, when you get into the game and create a position, and I'll show you that just momentarily, you create a shield, a heraldry, a flag, if you will, and everyone in the game sees that particular piece of heraldry. Now, we've exposed this for anyone to use. And the reason we did this is part of a marketing idea that a concept we have is something called value for advocacy. We give value here. You can use this in the hopes that people will use it for whatever, but in the process of doing it, they'll come to the website and look at it. So again, I'll remind you, what you're seeing here is going, that's interesting. There we are. It's usually much faster. So this is our heraldry designer. And again, we're looking at a web page here. So we select that particular shield, for example. We can change the colors on that. And maybe some dark red. Let's make it gray there. Leave it at that. Select a basic color. We'll make that black. We'll go to a field, grab, let's just grab
My wife and customizers for characters or stuff like this, she could spend an hour just getting it just right. Me, I'm like, just hit random a couple times. I'll figure out what I like.
Well, it's sort of interesting. That's one of the things we teach is the in the program, and not many people teach this because I have a background in psychology. We talk about needs theory and why people play certain games. And one of the axes we look at is the need to create something or basically express yourself into the product that you're working with. And that is a very important piece. I'm one of them. I belong to Alts Anonymous. I'll get into a game and I'll create an avatar and I'll play to a certain level. I'll go, no, he doesn't look right. And I'll go back and recreate. I'll do that 10 or 15 times until I get just the right avatar, then I'm okay to play. So it's sort of funny how that works. So with this, we make some changes. That looks pretty good. We grab a device. And we have all these devices. And again, this is sort of crazy stuff. So we'll grab, let's grab this. Let's grab that guy. Okay, that's nice, but he said it's small, so we're going to make him a little bit smaller, put him in a corner here. And actually, let's put him about right there. And let's change his color. Make him red. And again, remember, what we're seeing here is a web page. Okay. And I can grab another piece here. Let's do let's grab that sword. Yeah, but you know what? I want this to be right there. Let's do that. That looks pretty good. Well, maybe not that color. Let's make it white. And no, black. Yeah, there we go. So let's change the gray to black and change that to a brilliant red. And we say okay. And now when you play the game, every time someone sees any of your armies or characters or areas you control, boom, they see this particular piece of heraldry. And this is a web page. You can do this on any browser, any device.
Coming soon to a fridge near you.
Yeah, but you know what? One of our students did this. Okay, a 2-year student had an associate's degree, and he spent time and effort, and he figured out how to do this. And we had the artist do all the stuff. And Tim, who's on the call, can verify each one of these pieces of art is a whole series of layers. In fact, Tim often says he's juggling over 35,000 files just in art with this, which is just nuts. So yeah, so that's just the artistic piece of creating your heraldry. Okay, and if you want to know more about the races, let's see, we have a wiki. Actually, let's go back to this. Let's go back one. And we have the game wiki. So you click on the wiki and you'll come up to here. This is some of the races we have in the game. We have initially, for players to choose from, 10 basic races, 10 initial races. We have already backfilled another 4 secondary races that we'll be adding as time goes on. We have artwork and history and stories for those that fit into the overall theme of this. It is amazing how much detail there is with. So we select a particular race. We'll say let's grab a non-human race. Let's grab the Meritasi, for example, so the cat-like race.
The Khajiit.
Kind of, yeah. And then you have all this information about them, their abilities, their appearance, their religion, the various ships they start with, their racial history, and then you get into a whole series of stories. One of the things we found is to tell somebody, if you want someone to remember something, you tell it in a story. So what we do here is we have created stories, short vignettes about the culture or someone in the culture, and you see it through their biased eyes. And then from the process of doing that, you get a very clear sense of what the culture is about. Now, in the game itself, it's a massive game. It's actually a massively multiplayer game for about 3,000 people to play with and against each other. There are about 100,000 star systems, about a little over 500,000, somewhere between 500,000 to 600,000 worlds, and each world has areas that you can control, and we're in the easily the 15 to 18 million range. Then with that, we have created, used procedural generation to create literally tens of thousands of non-player characters, non-player races, empires, and their histories and their culture and how their art works and how their language works. And it's very, very detailed. And when
you did No Man's Sky before it was cool.
No Man's Sky is all graphics.
Yeah.
And the thing that's missing is what we have, which is the culture. The lure of No Man's Sky was initially oh wow, there's a galaxy and I can go out and I can find all of these NPCs and all of these computer-controlled races and interact with them. And it turned out not to be the case. It turned out that it was really 4 or 5 races, just in varying degrees of simplicity. And what this does is the opposite. It's not as graphical as I'd like it as No Man's Sky, which is, I mean, they did an amazing job graphically. It's more of the cultures and the characters that you have. This is actually a strategic role-playing game that you have characters that go out and they do missions, and the missions are created procedurally based upon where they are and the history and the location of where they're at. And it's going to be an amazing experience.
Sweet.
So this is actually starting a position. So we have different, we have up to initially 31 different types of positions you can start with. So like the Lost Explorers, which are the Valdes, sort of give the concept and the story behind that, where we have the Concordium, which is this de facto intergalactic empire connected via effectively what we call quantum gates, and how they basically maintained peace for almost, for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they're now to the point where they're bulging and there's nowhere for them to go. There have been wars in the past, there is history, conflict, but now they're looking to expand, and they found a way to use these gates to throw these colony ships across the galaxy, our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, to distant planets, to actually distant star systems to colonize. And this goes well. Tens of thousands of these ships go out colonizing, and then there's a particular point in time when all the gates that connect them are destroyed. And you as a player are leading this colony. And the gate that connects you basically to the Empire is now gone. What do you do? And that's actually how the game starts.
Big Stargate fan here, so...
Yeah, same kind of concept. And what they find is, as they explore their world and start to go out and expand and explore instead of because they're bound onto the world for the most part. They have a couple of ships that can get in system, but that's it. They find a probe, an ancient probe that predates the Concordium, has a new type of technology that allows you to go from one gravity well to another. And only certain gravity wells work. That's why we only have 100,000 stars in our game, where there should be more like 6 billion. So the players now are spacefaring, and now they're going to go and explore. And there's these questions: well, what happened to the Concordium? Who blew up the gates? Where did the probe come from? And all of these are answered in the process of going through and playing this procedurally generated extravaganza. It's what we call an epic odyssey, which is very much like the Odyssey. You're trying to find your way home. So yeah, it's really cool. The game itself, you start off, you create you go through this and you create a particular colony. Some of these colonies have multiple races, like the penal colony has both Jovian and Ursian on it. And based upon the colony, you have different types of skills that go with that. So like the rehabilitation retreat, which are Charian and Jovian, and then you select that. And then this comes up with a leadership test, which I'm going to go ahead and skip the testing on this, and tells you sort of everything I've just told you up to this point. The testing is interesting because if you go through that, it will, based upon your preferences and leadership skills. Now, there's the things that you would find of value. It suggests for you what your skills should be, what kind of a leader you should be. So we have different skills for your leaders, such as space combat and archaeologist. If those are the two skills, then you're basically called that's your title, explorer. And these are the types of skills that you start with. Okay, you can change your character avatar, you can change the background. In this case, we can even select the different races. So I decided to maybe be a female Jovian and change the background here. There we go. That will be my avatar. Then based upon the culture, it actually gives you Mania. That's great. Based upon your culture, there's a different name set that it comes up with. There's maybe 20 or 30,000 different combinations of names that are based upon the culture that these people are, or the series of cultures these NPCs are based on. And then once you're in the game, this is actually a star system. So let's go to the map. And what we see here is what you would normally start with. Now, we only see a very small piece, as you see. That's very small. And the yellow, excuse me, not the yellow, the blue line indicates where we can actually move to, with our ships. And the red is where we can scan. And then just beyond our scanning range, we can determine there are stars out here, but that's as far as we can possibly detect. Then we go into the system, and then we say, okay, I'm going to go to this planet. And again, remember what we're looking at here is a web page. Okay, this is not an engine. And then we zoom into that, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the armies off. They're a little annoying. And we zoom in one more, and that tells, and as we change and modify this, the technology changes and the buildings change. Right now, this is, we have, what, 50 population, It looks like we have 30 of them doing manufacturing, 15 doing research, and we have 5 of them looks like they're building onto the spaceport. And this particular hex, if they built trade goods, would build luxury items. And we say, okay, this is the two lead Edians, so this is one of the races we created. So what is this population segment doing? And you can have multiple population segments. We can have 15, 20, 30 different groupings of races on the same area, and they could be at different technology levels, which is rather interesting aspect. So this is their technology. This actually indicates they're right around globally industrialized. The infrastructure is a little bit higher, but that's what this colony would have been. It would have been something that was started sort of from scratch, create create an agricultural colony, and then went on from there. And then this is the race, and we looked at the race and the information about them. We have all the stats on that particular race. Now again, this is one of the 10 base races. You can control and manipulate any one of the 20 or 30,000 NPC races that will be generated the same way. Wow. And I'm going to stop there. There's a lot more to this.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I never got an overview of it before. I always just kept hearing about it. So
this is one of the cool things that, again, this is a web page. So this is the 2 types of ships we have. We have a civilian scout and a light carrier. So if I say, you know what, I'm going to modify this, actually change what it looks like, or maybe how it is colored. For the front, I'll add this front piece to it, and the scouts only have 2 pieces, so I'll maybe make this as the back piece. And let me change that to a blue color, and there's my new scout that I'll be designing.
That's cool.
That's a web page. And again,
yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, and the goal is this should be available on everything, every type of device.
It's it's cool because you're taking gaming, which sometimes is super unobtainable, especially in impoverished areas, and you're bringing it down to a level like, guess what? You can play this on any device.
That's exactly right. And there are many games out there that are popular, not because they're fantastic, amazing games. And I think this is pretty good. This is going to be a pretty good simulation. It's highly nuanced. It's pretty easy to learn. But the reach is tremendous. The reach is amazing. It's over everything. There's a whole bunch more to this. One of them is, for example, leaders. Our leader module right now is in the process of being rewritten. So I have some screens from what it would look like. So you click on, now again, what we're looking at here is one thing. It looks different because we have different what we call themes that players can have. So you want to have more of like this is sort of I don't know, I think we call this the pipes theme. I think we have 18 or 20 different themes someone can purchase for a couple dollars, and actually changes sort of the look and feel of the entire game interface. This is the main leader. This is his skills that he have up to the side. The type of leader, he's an infiltrator. When he was commissioned, what his life expectancy is, what kind of artifacts he has. And then you have different leaders that are non-commissioned. You can pick up different types of leaders and bring them in as you need certain skills in certain areas. And each type of skill will generate different types of missions that they will be able to go on and increase your skills or help you with your empire. And then you can commission or not commission, as the case may be. This sort of gives you some of the look at some of the artwork and how it's amazing how detailed this is. You first hear about it, you think, oh, no big deal, but then you should start getting into it. It's like Alice down the rabbit hole. It just keeps going and going and going and going, and that's the goal of it. Now, our target market for this is actually people who used to play games but don't have time to play them anymore. Most of the games that are out there require, 15, 20 minimum hours a week to be competitive.
Oh, and most of us are preaching to the choir. Well, yeah, right before this, I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I'm not even close to beating it. And I'm like 65 hours in. I've been playing it for like a year and a half. I just want to beat it.
Well, exactly. And what we're trying to do is to give something that someone can. the whole goal of this is more about the decisions you make and not the grind. So you set things in motion, and they stay moving in that direction until you change it. And you know, it's something that you come in and you decide what your missions are going to be. You check your economics. You make sure things are moving the right way. Then you shut it down and you go to your meeting. And then at lunch, you call it back up again. You spend 5 minutes doing stuff or talking to some of your allies, and you go off from there. It's designed not to take over your life.
Sorry, Dave. I'm just playing Starium over here. Cool.
That'll
If you have any last minute thoughts you want to add before Garrett gets into his
No.
discussion?
I mean, I can go off for hours and hours and hours, and I don't want to do that.
That's okay.
So,
Oh, thanks for sharing, my man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. It's exciting.
I can see giant Starium banners and stickers and T-shirts being made at the Fab Lab.
I can see that too.
All right, Garrett, are you ready? Oops, I muted you as you unmuted yourself.
All right, how about now?
Yeah.
All right. Yup. Okay, so let me share my screen. All right. See that all right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So I'm Garrett Hoofman. I work at 3rd Coast, which is out in Grand Haven. And I do augmented reality and virtual reality development. And then I also run a bunch of game development stuff. So I've been doing GameDevGR for a little over 6 years now. So GameDevGR is this. So we have a meetup page. So we, other than quarantine time now, obviously, we have not been meeting up. But up until then, it's been about 6 years that we meet up monthly and do a presentation or even just a let's work on things is what we've been calling them.
It was a really cool meetup. When I first started going and like the showcases you guys do, oh man, it was awesome.
Yeah, we usually do an October showcase where anybody that's working on a project can bring it in, and we've got like TVs and stuff like that so they can present their work and really try to get it out there and get feedback. And that's part of what we've been striving for the monthly meetups is after every presentation, we block out a good like 15+ minute section where anybody that's working on a project can come up, show it off, and get feedback from everybody else. And part of that, we've been working with Ferris, with Nick Pattison, so then we can host it at Ferris where a lot of the students are from KCAD and the Ferris game in animation and design, I think is what the course is called, and get them really involved as well. So we typically end up with like 15, 20 people each time that we meet up. And then spawning off of GameDevGR, we ended up with GameDevMichigan.com, which is basically all of Michigan. We've got studios and meetups and basically anything to do with game development. We've kind of funnel through this GameDevMI group. So we've got a Discord, which there's a public invite to on the homepage. Anybody can join. We've got like almost 1,000 people on there now from across the state.
Wow.
And so it's kind of a culmination of all of the meetups. So especially on the east side of the state, like Ann Arbor and Detroit, they've got a huge amount of people over there that are constantly doing meetups of some kind. And then all of the schools and presentations that people have done, we've slowly been getting those together. So we've got tons of them over the years. And then from there, I have done a number of these as well. We've got studios like Finji, they're a local game studio that's done Night in the Woods and Overland, all the way down to Brett Pennings. He did Mage Quit. There's Night in the Woods. This was a big one on Steam. Overland. This is another Finji one.
That one just came out on one of the game packs that we can talk about later on.
Yep. EXA, which is a VR and AR musical instrument creation tool, which has been really cool. And then Mage Quit, which is it's a 10-person brawler online game on all the different platforms. So tons of different games all over the place, and locally sourced, Michigan, also locally SRDMI on Twitter. This is run by Mike. He does a great job at actually showing off people's games and trying to get content out. So if you're interested at all in local Michigan games, this is the guy to follow. And he's got like a Steam curator page, which has got all of the different games. And there are a lot of Michigan games going.
Wow, that's cool.
And these are just the ones that are on Steam.
Sure. I'll put a link to that in the YouTube video when I upload it.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And the Discord is a good place to look for that too, because we've got people constantly posting to the projects channel on there, showing off what they're doing. And if you want to get feedback or if you want to get help on a direction for your game development, whether it's Unity or Unreal or anything all the way back to like XNA, you can probably find somebody that's working with the tech in the state.
So how did you start the meetup? Did you just say like, did you have some co-friends that were developers? You're like, hey, we're hanging out anyways.
So I had been looking at starting up a meetup for a while and just hadn't quite gotten to it. And then I'm trying to remember what his first name is, but his last name is Klusterman. And he had started a game dev meetup. And so I ended up going to it, and he hosted 2 or 3 of them. And then he ended up changing jobs, buying a house, and having a baby all in 1 month. And so all of a sudden he kind of like dropped off. Sure. And so after those 3 months, I ended up taking it over and then just kept on going with it. And so we kept meeting every month with that.
It can be quite a lot of work, man. I was running a meetup there for like a year and a half, and each week, each month trying to find a topic, trying to get it out there, and it's just,
Yeah, we kind of took it little by little, and every single month I would iterate just a tiny bit further to the point that we were getting like green screens and TVs and Twitch streams and you name it. We've probably tried it. At this point, we're a little bit more casual and a little more community focused and like supporting each other rather than like reaching out too far. The other side of the state, they tend to get a lot more students and a lot bigger audience. So they're usually like 40 to 50 people at some points. And so they'll tend to reach out to some of the bigger places like Unity or Unreal. They'll get sponsors that come in and look at big giant tutorials and stuff like that as well. But those things, they usually post those online or live stream them too. And especially in like this latest day and age, it's all pretty easy to get access to that kind of stuff and actually participate regardless of where you're at.
That's cool. Yeah, I see a bunch of your projects here on your homepage. The file table, I remember that because you brought that to the Fab Lab for one of our events, and I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, the file table was a fun project. It's an Android-based system, but you use your phone to connect to it, just all through the web. So there's no app that you download or anything. It's just you go to fio.io, punch in the code that shows up on the table, and then you use your phone as a controller.
It was a pretty big hit at the event you came and helped out with at the Fab Lab.
Yes.
At that point, we were trying to find any kind of station just to corral the hundreds of kids that showed up.
Right. Yeah. So basically the Android device here is an NVIDIA Shield that powers it, and then it's just running a standard Unity game. And then our file library hooks into that, and then the Unity game will push up a web page. And so whatever you can create in a web page, you can create for your controller, and then it gives communication back and forth to the table and your actual phone. And so there's a bunch of fun advantages to that. For one being, so we've got real-time communication, so you can use like almost like an Xbox gamepad. But not only that, you can do information hiding, so you could play like a game of poker or something, or sending real-time information back and forth, or rapidly changing the controller itself. So all of a sudden, instead of like push the A button, now it's push the fire button or push the water bomb spell button. So there's a lot of fun, interesting things you can do with it. And it's really good for party kind of games because you can connect any number. Like it's around like 32-ish connections before you start having any kind of communication errors, because it all goes through wireless. And if you're doing like a racing game where you're constantly sending inputs, it can start to bog it down a little bit just from the number of packets that go through.
This was something you were working on this with Craig, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Is it kind of been on hold? Or are you guys still actively?
Yeah. It's currently working. We've got a cloud-based thing. We don't have any. Craig was looking for sponsors and trying to figure out how we were going to actually monetize on it before we took it any further. So at this point, it's kind of sitting there waiting for a good test.
A push start.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. So he's still working on that.
Yeah. I thought it would be cool to go to a restaurant or a bar and you see like this table and you're playing this game with random people, and yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yep.
Because even now you go to like Stella's and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go play Tron, and I'm just playing by myself.
Yep. Yeah, this kind of funnels off the same idea of like the Jackbox games or any of those kind of things where you could just connect anywhere from anyone and jump into anything without having to, like, especially not having to download an app is huge for that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
That's cool.
Other stuff I had, like the OP engine was a little passion project of mine for a while. So this is a cross-platform game hitting everything from Android and iOS to Windows and PC, all the way to the failed Ouya system. So this is a full C and C++ game engine, all up on GitHub, so you can get access to all the source code, jump into it, and do whatever you want to it. This, I did a lot of game jams. So this, basically I would take a game jam and iterate on the engine. So I would take a feature that I wanted to try out or I wanted to build, and I would make it in the game jam time to kind of prove it out. And then once the game jam was done, I would figure out how to actually make it better for the engine and integrate it into it. And so I've got 15 different games that I've done on here.
Oh wow.
Tons of them.
So for those watching after or those now that don't understand what a game jam is, maybe iterate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so game jam is basically you take generally a weekend, a 48 or 72 hour period where you either solo or with a team sit down and make a game from scratch. And that's everything from the code to the art to the music to everything in a very condensed period of time. And so this one happened to be that I'm showing here was a 7-day game jam that I did with a friend. And so he did all of the art and I did all of the code, and then we grouped together to do sound effects. And so it's a very, very condensed time and can be stressful for some people, but it's a fantastic opportunity for learning, because you really, when you're building so rapidly, you don't really care about the quality of the code. The art it's expected to be kind of a low quality. So it's a really good time to try out ideas. Sure.
I'm sure you experienced some funny glitches too that you laugh about.
Oh man, so many. Lots and lots of mistakes that get made.
So are you kind of a jack of all trades? I know you do coding. Are you doing 3D assets?
I mostly do coding. I can kind of get away with art a little bit. Like this game jam was probably the closest I ever got to like trying to pull off art. It didn't turn out too bad. But this was another concept that I wanted to play with the idea of like comic book panels.
Oh yeah.
So this uses the concept of render targets.
Now, was it you that was on a game jam where you were on like a train or a bus or something?
Yep. So I did was it 2 years ago now? So this was one that I did that I then took a little bit further, and I've still got this on a project that we're actively working on called End of the Line. And so the whole concept was a tower defense game on a train. So you would basically defend against enemies that jump on your train, and you would try to build out your train. And so we took this game jam idea and then went further with it into this. So the initial game jam was actually done in my engine, and then we took that concept over to Unity. But this one is, that's actually even a much older video. I've got,
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that at like one of the showcases.
Yeah, so this is actually what it ended up turning into. I don't know if that full screen broke everything or not.
Oh, that looks like that's pretty good fidelity graphics.
Yeah, so
Now,
we took the...
Was it a bus or a train that you're on? Is that why? Is it a train?
It's a train, yep.
Okay.
So the whole idea was that you would build out your train and defenses and then try to survive from one station to the next.
Oh, no, the game jam. Did it happen on a train or a bus?
Oh, it was a train, yep.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's
just
then.
My version of graphics. This time I had an actual artist working on that.
Sure. Man, you get a bunch of gamers and throw them in a confined space and tell them they can't, you're not able to like bathe for 2 days. I can imagine it started to get stinky.
Yeah.
But when everybody else is stinky, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun with that. And yeah, so at this point, we ended up swapping over to Unity. The game engine that I had been working on was starting to be more cumbersome, especially as I was bringing other people on. It was very programmer focused. Like there was a scene editor, but it wasn't really a full-fledged scene editor.
Mm-hmm.
So it finally ended up bringing us into Unity, and Unity had like all the tool sets and everything, and they're already compiling for all the different systems that we wanted to be on. So we ended up going in that direction.
Now, yeah, Unity's pretty sweet. Like I had it downloaded for a while and I started playing with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibility. There's really three main game engines I would say right now if you're just starting out, and that'd be Unity or Unreal or Godot. And if you're going for a full game engine that's not like if you're going for a web-based only thing, the different story. If you're going for mobile only, you might have a different story there as well. It really does depend on the game. But if you're going for 2D or 3D typical game development, it's probably going to be one of these three engines if you're just getting started out.
Yeah, Unity really has brought it to the masses. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so back when I started working on my engine, none of these engines were out and available for free. And about 2 or 3 years in, then all of a sudden Unity was free and Unreal was free and more open source projects were starting to go. And yeah, it's dramatically more accessible now than it was a decade ago.
You tell me you're like you write an engine. I'm like, in my brain, I can't even comprehend what that entails. It sounds very complicated.
It's very much so like making a game in itself. You wear a lot of different hats because not only are you working with you're doing input stuff, now you got to do rendering stuff, and now that you finally got that, now you still have to worry about the audio system, and now how do you write to the file system? How do you actually do networking? Everything gets more and more complicated. So when you work with like Unity or Unreal, a lot of those subsystems are already all built out for you. So I remember the first time I started using Unity, I was so aggravated because things that would take me like 2 days to develop was just you would drag and drop and poof, it's all working.
Things like
so
if
frustrating.
You wanted to add like an inventory system in your game or something, right? Like that's just a prefab thing.
Right. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of very nice concepts that have been fleshed out really well over the years on all of the different engines.
Do you have a passion project, like maybe you've started, or maybe you like have this idea for a game in the future, but you just necessarily don't have things fleshed out? Like you always looking for the next thing?
The passion project I think that I would say is probably this Set in Stone game, which is a placeholder title, but the whole concept is a 2-player game, but it's asymmetric. So the goal of a parent being able to play with a kid is the
Don't hit
goal.
those chickens, man. Zelda taught me they'll come mess you
Oh
up.
yeah, they will. So I was just noticing it, like, so my stepdaughter, when I got together with my wife, she was about 3 years old, and she's 12 now. But so during that stage of growing up, there's a lot of games that we couldn't really like actually play a game together. The closest we could really get to was like a racing game, because she would just hold the gas pedal and then move left and right. That's not too bad. But you start getting any of the, like, you get like fighting games, and you get all these different, just very complex, especially for like finite mechanical, like using your actual fingers to try to grasp what you're supposed to be doing was just a little bit too far. So I wanted a concept where the parent could do some of those complex things while the kid could still be enjoying and participating in the game and actually make a difference in the game, versus like you're a little like ghost figure or something that follows along, which a couple of games tend to do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think in the new Mario Odyssey, they did a pretty good job with that, with the hat or whatever. But yeah, it's a good point. I mean, that's a market that doesn't get really a lot of traction to it, you know, because then you just
Nintendo
get frustrated parents who like, oh, my kid wants to game with me, and deep down being a gamer, you're like, I want to game with them, but it's such a pain.
And then you give them a controller and you just unplug it.
So speaking of that, like in college, we would have people over to our house, and we would have Halo parties. I think Halo 3 was big back then, and so we'd LAN up some Halo, play with people. My nephew, who's now 11, would be over with my brother. You always want to play, but you know, we're all like trying to play competitively a little bit. We don't want like, no one wants the 5-6-year-old on their team, so I would just give him a controller without batteries in it and say, "You're that screen," and it worked for a while. And then one day he looked at me and he's like, "I'm not really playing, am I?" I was like, "Oh no, I've been caught."
Yep.
Yeah.
It is surprising how well that can work, though.
Right. It worked for a while. That's, yeah. So cool. That's awesome. And is that just, you just keep working on it, you know, slow it a little bit at a time, or?
Yep. Yeah, I jump all over the place.
Sure. It seems like it. I mean, you're into 3D printing now all of a sudden, so.
I am, yeah. It's been a fun sidestep.
Yeah, and one wheel was big for a while, so you're all over.
Right. The 3D printing has been kind of interesting just from the game development perspective too, because I was able to take all the stuff that I've done with Maya and Blender, the 3D modeling stuff, and actually use it for the 3D modeling. So it's just another like showcase of how many fields are actually involved in game development.
It's cool to be able to like see the things you've created and bring them to life. Like,
it's
amazing.
Cool. I want to take one of the characters, like one of these guys, and print them out so I can have an actual like physical thing of it. It'd be really cool.
Oh yeah.
I still haven't done it yet.
Talk a little bit about maybe 3rd Coast, a little bit maybe what you guys want to do with AR, VR. I know we talked before offline off this about HoloLens 2 and HoloLens 1, and just share a little bit of thoughts on that stuff.
Yeah, so basically 3rd Coast, we do a bunch of augmented reality and virtual reality enterprise level training mostly. We've done some of the marketing stuff like that. Like you might have seen Bell Tire, they did a big, huge AR push that we worked on. But most of what we're targeting right now is enterprise level training. So in essence, we want to be able to make it so that then we can take a person off of the street, bring them into a company, and they would be able to operate a giant big machinery without being told anything. They would just put one of these devices on like this. This is the first generation HoloLens here. They would be able to put it on, and it would show augmented reality on top of the machine, guiding them and telling them exactly the steps and what needs to happen in order to operate on anything.
bro, this will change my auto mechanic repair game in the future.
Yes.
I won't have to find crappy YouTube videos.
Right, exactly. So we're working with companies that are trying to make this a priority for their products. So you imagine buying a product like let's say like a humidifier, for example. Those things you generally have to change out a filter on them. So now when you get that humidifier, it also comes with an app that you can download, or eventually even just a website that you go to that integrates the WebXR pieces. And it will do object recognition to find the humidifier, and then it will guide you to exactly the steps that you have to replace and remove and reposition it back in, all without, so like a actual step-by-step guide without having to do a YouTube thing.
Now, just like other instruction manuals, I'll probably just throw the headset away, be like, eh.
Right. Right. Not that, hopefully not.
Right. Not a $10,000 headset.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, so we do a lot of that stuff. So here's actually one example of a fairly complicated machine. This was using tape that they would wind it through all these different rollers all over here. And there's like, I want to say there were 60 different steps of ways that the tape would wind around through.
Jeez.
And the tape you'd have to have an upside and a backside. And so figuring all this out, at one point they had sticky notes just everywhere, covered all over this machine, trying to instruct somebody on how to actually use it. So now with this, the app that we built used the original HoloLens, and it would show you virtually the tape, and it would show you which side of was the top that you were supposed to wind around through. And then when you would finish one step, you would go to the next and it would show you exactly how you were supposed to wind it and go through this entire machine step by step.
It's like real life job simulator.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that.
That game, yeah. No, that's cool. Like coming from manufacturing, we would always have, if we designed a piece of automation equipment like that, we'd bring in basically, if it was going to go to California, Mexico, wherever, they would usually fly machine operators to our facility and spend like a week or two training on the machine on site, so that if there's issues, they can come and talk to us and we can modify designs and stuff like that. So
right. Absolutely.
There was a whole documentation department that had to write step-by-step operation instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, some people are just visual, right? Like,
right. Yeah. And this whole thing was just done in Unity. So this is game development. Like this uses all of the same stuff.
That's cool. From what you even said about HoloLens too, man, I'm on it. Like, I want one.
It's really cool.
All you have to say is Iron Man. That's it, and I'm in.
Another piece that we're doing here is augmented reality on doing object recognition for quality inspection. So making sure that a piece actually looks like it's supposed to by using object tracking to point at individual pieces on the product and say yes or no that they are good or they are not. And the biggest piece with this is that right now most manufacturing places that do like car parts or furniture or any of that kind of stuff, it's usually just like a pencil and piece of paper where they do a little check mark.
Yeah, they call them first articles.
Yeah. So with this, you use an iPad and you say yes it's good or no it's bad, and it takes a picture. So it records the actual success state and actual physical part every time you make a step and every time you tell it yes or no. And so it gives an actual value to it for a lot of these customers that just ship it out, and then all of a sudden they've lost the paper or they don't have any actual visual proof that it was good, and so then they end up losing money on it. And then on top of that, this ends up being faster because now they're not going from place to place and trying to actually file these pieces of paper and losing them.
Right. It just goes boom to the cloud.
Exactly. So this is using augmented reality, again, same Unity development, native stuff to basically make augmented reality an input tool instead of just a Pokemon Go kind of game.
Sure. That's awesome. Did you have anything else right now?
I think that's enough for now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm gonna plug a little bit of the Unity stuff that
Yeah.
just for anybody else that's interested. We talked a lot about Unity, and let's see, we don't need that. Sometimes it highlights the screen I'm sharing, sometimes it does not. So anybody that's interested, that is not Unity. You can download Unity for free. And there's all these like tutorials, a whole learn center. There's a lot of stuff right now, like their premium stuff from what I've been watching is available for free because of all the COVID stuff. And, you know, they have a demo game for a first person shooter micro game, right? It walks you through the process. There's like 3 of them. I think there's an RPG one, then there's like a karting one where you're driving around like Mario Kart style. So if anybody's interested, it's pretty cool. You know, when you open up Unity, this all interface is still very new to me. Do you see my screen right now? Is it Unity?
Yep.
Okay. So like this is the first person shooter one that it, you know, walks you through doing various things. You can add parts to your level. On the left here, you have all your like parameters that you can change. So I can test it. I hit play. There we go. So I'm playing my game that I modified. Now in this game, I played around, I modified the gravity, so I'll go really high. But this is available to anybody. Like that's really the cool thing. Like boom, on a Friday night, guess what I was doing? I was developing and modifying a game. Like it's amazing. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, okay. Real quick, I'll bring you guys both back in. So, what would you say like your go-to games are? Like, what are your favorite games throughout? You know, if you have to do in a couple categories, that's fine. But when somebody asks you favorite game, what comes to mind?
You first, Garrett.
Right now, my favorite game, at least for the last couple of years, has been Overwatch. Mostly just because I can jump in for 10, 15 minutes and then be done and go back to work.
Sure.
No, yeah, I have a tendency to go in cycles. I'll play a little No Man's Sky, 'cause that's nice and casual. You can go just do something for a little while, jump out, no big deal. And I'll jump into something like Warframe. Again, do a couple missions there, jump in, jump out. Interesting game, really interesting. Gary, you played Warframe before?
I've not. Mars Ashton from the east side of the state, he has told me so many times that I need to play it, and I still have yet to jump into it.
A lot of great concepts. A little off-center, but good concepts, and a lot of things to learn from.
I've heard great things about the developers of it.
Oh, yeah.
They are fantastic guys.
Absolutely. They've definitely done it the right way. The game I keep going back to is Work Band by Tailworlds, a little company out of Turkey, Ankara, Turkey. They've been able to create this dynamic environment where you get in, you start to play. Every game is different. You never do the same thing twice, and it's the model where I see things going, where you are playing a game in an environment, and the environment is alive. And I think they've gone further than anyone else in terms of making that a reality, even more so than the guys from Project Red. I mean, they haven't got there yet. They're still a couple steps behind. So yeah, those are the 3 main games that I really look at. And you know, right now I'm looking at a game called 7 Days to Die. I don't know if you've played that or seen that. That's sort of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of survival game.
Have you played RimWorld?
No, I don't like the graphics. Graphics put me off.
I didn't either, but man, I got sucked into it hard.
A friend of mine, that's all he literally plays on Steam.
Oh, not a particularly kid-friendly game, but man, yeah, it was surprisingly good.
What about you, Holly? You want to share? So those that don't know, Holly is involved. She's with the Fab Lab, and if she wants to share, she can. If not, if she
Oh,
can't,
unmute. Sorry,
Oh.
I'm like struggling to unmute myself.
you look like you're
there.
playing
That was
Starium right
weird.
now with your background.
Right? I'm like, I like that you think I have time to sit in front of the computer. I have to like run from my house to play games usually, and I've been more tabletopping lately.
Gotcha.
But I mean, we're ESO players as a family. We go
You're
back.
into WoW as
we're
a family
just,
too, from what I heard.
Mhm.
and yeah, we have a long history of just WoW and ESO. And then oh, what's the one, Chris? We talk about losing your ships. It's the star one.
Eve.
What's the one where
Eve on lane
Eve?
or Elite Dangerous maybe.
No, it's Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eve broke my heart.
We play that.
Never
as a
again.
family. Yeah, I was like, it's like the
Same
one
thing.
that you'll never take back.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I figure if I want to get mugged, I'll just stuff 20s in my pocket and walk down Central Park. But yeah, it won't do Eve.
I grinded a lot
Yeah.
back in college. Me and my friend, we thought we had cool ships. We hyperspace into this like galactic war zone with like these giant frigates and just blowing it apart instantly. We were just like flew into like a war,
Yeah.
a PvP war, and it was just like, I'm done.
Excel Online.
Yeah.
Cool. Other games that like me and my friends, we play Sea of Thieves a lot, although that game's kind of the same thing. Like it's fun when you can get on a good server and you don't get like pirated. I know it's a pirate game, but like not all pirates need to be jerks. I mean, come on now. That game's pretty fun. I love horror games, so like the Dead Space 1, 2, and 3 games were always big to me. And
So it's the suspense that you like.
yeah, Alien Isolation, I like that game. Same thing. It's a one-off alien game, but that suspense of that freaking alien chasing you.
Oh.
Gosh. I couldn't imagine playing that game in VR.
There is a game that just dropped on the PC today, and I'm thinking about picking it up. It's Detroit. Finally came to.
Oh yeah, I did hear good things about that. It didn't get a lot of publicity, it seemed like, when it came out, but I did hear good things.
Is that
Funny
Detroit
story
Human?
about that. Talking about engines, it was actually a demo called Kara that was highlighting what you could do in this game engine, and people were so taken by the demo that eventually they created a game from it. So go to YouTube and look up Kara Android robot, and you'll have a little like 5-minute video that's actually done in a game setting, in a game engine, and it's the basis of Detroit.
That's cool.
Yeah,
They're
she's checking it out now.
with all this stuff going on around us, it's cool that a lot of these game developers kind of bundled up together, and like here's one of them. This one's expired, but the fact that these indie and non-indie game companies, use gaming for a good cause, and their games might have never seen the light of day. Maybe 10 people played some of these games, right? But the fact that this thing was like 1,700 games for $5, like that's like the epitome of a impulse purchase. Like, buy it now. It'll be like my Steam library. I never play anything, but I know it's going to a good cause, so it's kind of cool. And I hope we see more of this. This other one, Humble Bumble. This is one that somebody sent me as well. It's a little more costly, but there's actually a lot more like bigger
games.
Yeah, bigger developers in it.
Yeah.
So I just bought this one too.
You got to play Baba Is You.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what that is. It looks adorable, but
The graphics are pretty low quality, but it won so many awards.
wow. I've heard of FTL. That game kind of seems it's like a shipbuilder, but it's like top-down view.
Spelunky did.
Spelunky is great. FTL is by the same guys from Into the Breach, which is also awesome.
Right here, I have Elite Dangerous for Xbox, so I got it mostly I got this package mostly because I'm like, oh, I can get it for PC now too. Sweet. Yeah, it's pretty cool that they're doing this. I hope stuff like this continues to go on, and I find myself really digging indie games a lot more, like on the Game Pass that Xbox does. Like I'm way more likely to play a game that's like 1 gigabyte that I can beat in a week than I am to, download the new Call of Duty. I mean, I play that, for the online with friends, the Warzone or whatever, but it's like 180 gigs for that game now. I'm like, come on now. And, but Game Pass has allowed these developers to get games out that maybe would have never seen the light of day.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. Yeah, the market's definitely changing. There's no doubts about that. Remember 10 years ago when I first came in, I would say, okay, what games are you playing now? And usually about 6 games would be what the entire class would be playing. And now I ask the same question, and I have 35 different answers, and they're not even close to being the same. And there's about 400 titles that drop a month now on Steam?
Probably about that.
Yeah,
they've exploded in the last 3 years, especially once they opened the platform up.
Yeah.
How does one get a game on Steam? Like,
pay $100, upload it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you create a presence, pay some money, and then.
There's a little bit of filter just for like getting rid of shovelware and stuff like that, but not much. If you've made a game, regardless of the quality to a degree, you can get it up on Steam now.
Yeah, very low bar to entry. But the downside is it's hard to really break into mainstream now because there is so much noise. In our classes, we talked about that being the reverse stadium effect. Your consumer is in the middle of the football field, and all of the providers are in the stands trying to get his attention. And it's almost impossible to do.
That's a good analogy.
But there are ways. So anything else we can do for you?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Anybody watching? Holly, do you have any questions? Jeremiah, Matt, anybody that's in here? Maybe Bossman Dave has a question. Anybody?
No, I just can't wait to see. I want to see all of the local developers. I want to see them coming in using, if we have equipment at the lab. I want to see it in action. I kind of am excited about it. I like to see the kids come in, and I like to, see if any of them know how easy it is to get started with Unreal and Unity. I bought the bundle for the homeschool program for the lab. I think Unreal was the one I bought from. You know what I'm talking about? The tech skills, Chris, that we
Oh yeah,
bought?
the Slack skills thing.
And we try to make it available. Yeah. We try to make that available to try to encourage everybody to get developing. So no, this is great. Thanks for sharing.
It's kind of like, Dave, a game is kind of like a moving picture where you tell the moving picture what to do. You know what that is, right? No.
That's actually a trick question.
Yeah.
Real answer is it's an experience. It's the experience that a game developer has crafted for someone to consume.
I could see a very big blockbuster game about a handsome Fab Lab manager and his volunteers and employees and their adventures inside the Fab Lab, right? It's like a dungeon. You have to go to the laser of knowledge, right? You have to go to the CNC of power. We could turn our virtual tour that's on our website into a game that you play.
Load up RPG Maker. You could make it in the weekend.
Nice.
Any questions out there?
We might have to do some kind of game showcase on the Lakeshore there, Garrett. Now that you're a
Yeah.
Lakeshore representative working out there.
Yeah, and let us know the next time you guys get together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of your group.
Yeah, we're looking to start doing some online meetups over the next couple of months until we can actually get back into a physical place. Like obviously with the colleges and everything, we're kind of limited on spaces.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have to say, Garrett, you're pretty brave to show some of your artwork off, being a non-artist.
Yeah, I can 3D model here and there, but that's about it.
Well, that about does it. Thanks everybody for coming to watch. If you're watching this later on YouTube, I'll have a bunch of links in the description when I post this to YouTube, so you can visit some of these sites that we discussed, and also information for Garrett and Jim in the YouTube description, so you can contact them if you have any questions. And thanks to our awesome guest speakers.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, game on, everybody.
All right. All right.